This is the East Idaho Prepcast on IdahoSports.com.
That's right. Welcome in. East Idaho Prepcast, breaking down Districts 5 and 6, week in, week out in the state of Idaho, here on IdahoSports.com. Brandon Baney joined by Sean Kane. Sean, what's going on?
Hey, not too much. Just been busy with adult league softball, fall season, 2 games in a row. Kind of hard on the old guy, but, doing my best Aaron Judge out there,
Oh my gosh. You play slow pitch softball. What position do you play?
Usually like first base. They try to, put the best players to make the most, plays, and I try my best.
Yeah. Well, it's been a minute since I played slow pitch softball, but I usually play first base as well, mostly because I'm left-handed, and that kind of limits where I can play, right? But
yeah, it is a right-handed league. We'll just say that there's not a lot of left out there. In fact, we tried to get someone to join our team one day because we didn't have enough players, and they were left-handed and couldn't find an extra left-handed mitt, so he would throw the mitt down and then throw the ball. It was awesome. It was like a younger kid. He would catch it, and then he'd throw the mitt and then switch hands to throw the ball. But yeah,
oh man,
not a lot of extra left-handed mitts.
Hey, you do what you got to do, right?
Oh yeah.
And, speaking of teams doing what they had to do, let's dive right into it. Last week, the 66th annual Black and Blue Bowl, Highland hosting Pocatello in the annual football matchup. This was a game you and I were on the call for on IdahoSports.com. All the scoring was done in the first half. It was pretty crazy. Pocatello took the lead early on a 4-yard touchdown run by sophomore quarterback Hunter May, getting the start in place of the injured Drake Contreras. From there, though, Highland gets 2 long touchdown runs. Well, not long, but 2 touchdown runs from Jackson Riddle, who finished with just shy of 110 yards, averaged 12 yards a pop, had 2 touchdowns. But second half, I mean, each team got like 3 possessions, and that was it. That second half went by like that. And then we looked up, and Highland had won 14-7, their 12th win in a row in the Black and Blue Bowl.
Yeah, it was, both teams would have drives, and a lot of them got hampered with penalties. I think Jackson Riddle might have had, close to like 170 yards if it wasn't for a couple penalties that brought back some really big runs. So both teams were able to drive it. Just no team was really kind of able to put any points. A couple missed field goals too, I think, from each side, and just not a whole lot of offense. They'd get down kind of in the red zone, but couldn't finish, either penalties or just the defense stiffening up.
Yeah, and we talked about, coming out of it for Pocatello, disappointing that they lost again to their rivals, but considering that they were throwing Hunter May in at quarterback for just the second time in his career, to only lose 14-7 and have a chance, late in the second half to win it, I thought that was a pretty good showing from the Thunder.
Yeah, they definitely had opportunities in the second half too. They went to a lot of Reich and Echo Hawk kind of being the quarterback, but more of like a wildcat formation too. So they would have Echo Hawk out there, and then if it was 3rd and long, they'd bring Hunter May back in, and he's an athletic guy. He can cut across the field and make some moves, and just probably needs more on the field time for some of those throws and timing things. That's what I kind of noticed, is that timing isn't there. But I mean, that's a lot to ask for a sophomore quarterback against a Highland defense that is always really good in the middle, with the linebackers. So very tough outing for him.
Yes. So Highland gets the win 14-7. They move to 2-2 on the year. Pocatello drops to 2-2 as well. So both teams have the same record. And obviously the big story was Pocatello quarterback Drake Contreras missed the first game of the year, still recovering from a broken leg he suffered earlier in the summer. Last Friday, he was in a boot, basically a walking boot, some sort of foot injury. Hopefully he's back soon, because he's a dynamic player for Pokey. I mean, they're 2-0 with him, 0-2 without him. So hopefully he's back soon. And I don't know if you saw this or not, Sean, but Jackson Riddle, the great Highland running back who was our IdahoSports.com player of the game, he was making his season debut after missing the first 3 games with a collarbone injury. He actually re-injured that collarbone in the game on Friday night. And I think he may be done for the season now, or at least it's going to be a while again before he's back, which is just awful because he played so well.
Yeah, he's was definitely the difference maker for Highland that game, and you could tell the offense was much more potent when he was on the field, whether just having to account for him and opening up some other things. So, I mean, that's going to be tough for Highland, but Highland had a bunch of different guys that could get in there and run the ball. So I don't think they have a lack of capable ball handlers, but I obviously would love to have Riddle back there this weekend, especially because they're traveling to Meridian to play, correct? And that will be a very difficult battle for them.
Yes, that'll be a fantastic matchup, a game that we will have for you on IdahoSports.com, audio-only broadcast at Meridian. Those Meridian schools, we can't go do video like we can at the Pocatello schools for Gate City game night. So audio only Friday night. Highland fans can tune in and listen to that game at Meridian. Yeah, here's the tweet. Jackson Riddle put this on Twitter yesterday. He said, started my junior season with a broken collarbone. First game was Friday night. Amazing night. Proud of my Rams. Unfortunately, I re-broke it. Heartbroken. Bigger, better, and stronger next year. So that certainly sounds like season-ending injury.
Yeah, you're probably not going to come back after that, and you want that thing to heal, and so you can play a full season. You don't want that injury to keep popping up, and it's probably not worth it at this point.
Definitely. So now for Highland, they kind of go back to what they'd been doing the first couple of weeks of the year, where Kai Callan will get some carries at running back. Mason Fulmer will play both ways. Again, I think he only had 2 carries on Friday night. Yeah. He'll have to be counted on to play running back again this year. So it's a Highland team that maybe doesn't have the depth that we're used to seeing in years past, but man, that top end talent is still so impressive. And so for Highland, yes, they go to Meridian Friday night. That will be a very interesting contest. Pocatello travels to Thunder Stadium to play Hillcrest, a Hillcrest team that, yes, they're 1-3, but they were very competitive in their last couple of games. They only lost to Blackfoot 21-6. I mean, the pieces are there for, if Hunter May is starting again for Pocatello, I think it could be a pretty close battle between these two teams.
Yeah, Hillcrest is, they're a tough team. They're kind of under the radar because I feel like that conference just has so many potent teams. So I think Hillcrest, the right situation and the games they've lost it's just kind of been things at the end that they haven't been able to finish. And that's a team that's coming into their own, and it's going to be one game they're going to figure out how to finish the game, and it could be this week.
Definitely. Let's move on to the 3A ranks, where again Idaho's teams are really excelling. Southeast Idaho's teams. There's one team in the entire state of Idaho that is 5-0, and it's the South Fremont Cougars, because they're the only team that has played every week, including week 0 so far. Everybody else has only played 4 games. There's a lot of undefeated teams still, but South Fremont is the only team that can say they're 5-0. They beat Jackson Hole, Wyoming last week pretty convincingly, 34-14. Bryce Johnson was 16 of 22 passing for 173 yards and 2 touchdowns. He also rushed for a 20-yard touchdown and a 33-yard touchdown in the second half to put the game away. The Cougars, veteran coach Chad Hill, it was only 2 years ago that they were in the 3A semifinals. I think this is shaping up to be a really nice season for them.
Yeah, it's a tough team. They're in a tough conference as well, and don't sleep on South Fremont. I think they were ranked 3rd, maybe. I just caught the coaches poll, but I think people are not probably giving them as much credit as they deserve. But that's an impressive win. That Jackson Hole team's been a good team in the past, and yeah, it'll be interesting to see how the conference play finishes up for South Fremont.
Yeah, and again, this entire conference is a combined 13-0. South Fremont is 5-0. Yeah. Sugar Salem is 4-0. Teton is 4-0. I mean, something's got to give. They're going to start playing each other in October. But when you look at South Fremont, and people are dismissive, I guess because really they've had 2 games where they've really put the opponent away, right? They beat Salmon 49-0, and then this win over Jackson Hole. The other games have been tight, right? They beat Aberdeen 21-14. They beat Timberlake 18-14, and they were the first team to play Wood River in Wood River's adventures at the 3A level, and they won that game 20-8. And yet I would say it doesn't matter how many points you win by. A win's a win. 5-0 is 5-0, right?
No one's going to ask you how many you won by if you win, right? At the end of the
Yeah.
day, if you're holding the trophy, you're holding the conference trophy or that state trophy, no one cares if it's a half a point. I mean, you're going to take it, and teams that find a way to win in the postseason.
Yeah. So South Fremont, they look pretty good. They're going to play Snake River on Friday. That'll be an interesting matchup. The Panthers are 2-1. Their loss was to Kimberly earlier this year, and we'll talk about Kimberly and Marsh Valley real quick in just a second. Sugar Salem had a bye last week, so they were off, and then Teton shut out Salmon 55-0. Jack Nelson threw 5 touchdown passes. 3 of them went to Thomas Roosevelt. Ashton Gunther ran for a touchdown, caught a touchdown. Ty Brown caught a touchdown. Luke Nelson ran for a touchdown. Jerem Roosevelt returned an interception for a touchdown. This is a Teton team that I think a lot of people are sleeping on. They have beaten a lot of the same teams that South Fremont has beaten. They've got wins over Jackson Hole, Wyoming, and Salmon. They beat Marsh Valley in that wild game 41-40, but otherwise their other 3 wins have all been blowouts.
Yeah, and we talked about it last week. Teton's a team that could go 5 or 6-0, and they're 4-0 right now. And we talked about them that they're going to be undefeated before a matchup maybe against Sugar Salem or South Fremont. So
yeah, they've got a very good coach up there. First year head coach, Coach Joyce, who formerly was the coach at Jackson Hole in Wyoming. He's done a phenomenal job with that program. They play American Falls on Friday in Driggs. I think they win that, and they're 5-0 ahead of a game with Snake River. So Snake River all of a sudden is going to play South Fremont and Teton in back-to-back weeks. That'll be an interesting stretch for the Panthers. How about this game? Marsh Valley came into the matchup last Friday winless. Kimberly came into the game undefeated, and it's Marsh Valley who wins 53-40. This was a shootout. Bradley Belknap, who made the move from running back to quarterback this year for Marsh Valley, he rushed for 2 touchdowns, threw for 2 touchdowns, kicked the 25-yard field goal. Marsh Valley's defense returned a fumble for a touchdown. This was an impressive win for the Eagles, their first one of the year. And you have to start somewhere, and they still have both of their conference games still coming up. So this is a Marsh Valley team that's maybe figuring it out.
Yeah, and it's something I talked about is I felt the Marsh Valley team was really good, and I thought, they were going to start winning games at some point. And I mean, you just like you said, the Teton game 40-41, that goes either way. 20-46 against Westside is not a bad score. A lot of times Westside beats teams 46-0. So don't let that score send you in the wrong direction. But yeah, I felt Marsh Valley, they're kind of good in everything this year. They've just got a lot of good athletes, and they play Sugar Salem next week. So that will be definitely a measuring stick for them. So
yeah, that's on Friday night. Marsh Valley goes to Sugar Salem to play the Diggers coming off the bye. That'll be a fantastic matchup for sure. The 2A ranks, the game we've all been waiting for is this Friday night, Sean. Westside at Bear Lake. Westside 3-0, Bear Lake 3-1. Can somebody knock off the Pirates? If it's going to be someone, more than likely Bear Lake, although Aberdeen has also been playing very well this year. So we'll keep an eye on that game later on in the season. But Westside at Bear Lake promises to be a pretty entertaining one.
Yeah, definitely. And yeah, Aberdeen beat Soda Springs 56-19 this past week. And yeah, but Bear Lake and Westside, it's kind of always comes up to be a big game. And lately Westside's made it not that big of a game. And this year might be the year. So, I mean, we'll have to wait and see.
Definitely. Let's go back up to District 6. There was a lot of really close games in District 6 last week. You had Ryrie beat American Falls 25-21. You had West Jefferson beat Malad by a touchdown 21-14. On IdahoSports.com, Shelley knocks off Blackfoot 35-28. Kind of a cool twist. The broadcasters for that game, Josh McGauley and Matt Kelly, gave the IdahoSports.com Player of the Game award to the entire Shelley offensive line because they rushed for almost 400 yards as a team, didn't allow any sacks on the night. That was a big win for the Russets. Again, I think people have really been underrating Shelley. Yes, they're 1-3. They've had a very tough schedule to start the year. And then this game was wild. Idaho Falls and Bonneville. Did you see this game, Sean?
Yeah, in overtime, right? So Idaho Falls, who's kind of been struggling moving down to 4A, comes away with a wild 22-21 win. Yeah.
So kind of an odd scoring game. In the third quarter, Bonneville gets a touchdown and they run the swinging gate, which for listeners or viewers that may not know, it's a formation where basically lined up on the ball basically is the center, the quarterback, and like a wide receiver, right? And they're kind of offset away from the rest of the offensive players, and it forces the defense to come out and cover those guys. It's kind of a gimmick, right? Very often the three players that are on the perimeter then come back to a normal formation. But anyways, Bonneville ran the swinging gate and got the pass complete. They succeeded in getting the 2-point conversion. So it gets to overtime. We're in overtime. We're tied at 15 all in overtime. Idaho Falls gets the ball first to start the overtime period, and they score in pretty quick order. The Tigers end up getting a rushing touchdown from trying to find it here. Or excuse me, they get a pass from Fetter to Watkins. Cale Fetter throws it to Easton Watkins for a 10-yard touchdown. So Idaho Falls leads 22-15. Bonneville then gets the ball. They answer with a 5-yard touchdown run from Anthem Dalkey, and they decide to go for the swinging gate again. They're going to go for the 2-point conversion and the win. This time the pass falls incomplete. Idaho Falls gets the 1-point win.
Just a wild ending. But I have to say, just, for overtime, I like the high school overtime, giving each team the ball at the 25 and doing that. And I think that it just makes a very exciting ending. And so often it comes down to that team that decides to go for two, either you win it or you don't, obviously. But what are you going to do? I mean, it was Blackfoot last year that won 5 or 6 games by 1 point. So it's a wild way to end the game, but good job for Idaho Falls to get the win.
Yeah, well, and last year in the 3A championship game, right? Sugar Salem goes for 2 in overtime, and they don't get it. Brett Spencer of Weiser comes up and makes that tackle right at the goal line of Carson Harrison. Yeah, Sugar doesn't get it, and Sugar loses the 3A championship. They're still mad about that up there, by the way. They're very motivated.
That's a hard way to lose, yeah, but I like it. Gives you a chance for people to make a play either on the offense or defense. Someone's got to come up with something. So that's an exciting way to end the game.
Yeah, definitely. Let's talk about West Jefferson ends up getting that tight win. Like we said, they end up defeating. They end up getting the win over Malad 21-14. But this was kind of a cool story, like away from the game. So. There's a new coach at West Jefferson this year, Kip Blanchard, first-year head coach, has done a nice job of kind of reinvigorating the program a little bit. West J's 2-2 on the year. They did make the playoffs last year in the 2A ranks, but they were bounced in the first round. So they did a fundraiser at the game on Friday night in Terraton. Basically, they made the announcement that everybody who wore a West Jefferson, shirt and hat to the volleyball game that happened earlier in the week would receive a raffle ticket. And so the raffle was drawn at the football game. And check out this prize package: a dozen cookies from Crumble, a $50 gift card to Jakers, that's a nice restaurant, Jakers. And you got a $50 gift card to Cabela's. That might be the coolest part. So
that's a date in Idaho.
That is right.
Cabela's, Jakers, and cookies. Wow.
Yeah. So
Camo, Camo and cookies.
Sophomore. That's going to be the title of the episode. I'm writing it in right now. Camo and cookies. That's good. So sophomore Boone Burtonshaw ends up having his name drawn. So he wins that incredible prize package. And then there's an added twist at the football game where after the game, he gets to trot out and attempt a 25-yard field goal. And if he makes it, he gets $500 on top of all those prizes he's already won. So what's he do? Of course, he goes out and nails it. So this, I mean, what a night for Boone Burtonshaw of West J.
I'm just thinking it's like, the Price is Right when the person wins the thing with all the stuff, right? The car, everything. He won all the prizes betting $1.
Yeah, exactly. So it was a really cool gesture by Kip Blanchard to say, it's great that you come support the football team on Friday nights, but hey, we've got a volleyball team that is like rock solid as well. West J's volleyball team is very solid. Jordan Torgerson is a fantastic player, and they've got so many great ones. So this was kind of cool for him to say, like, hey, come on out and support our volleyball team as well, and let's show them some support. We're all in this together. I thought it was a really cool gesture by Kip Blanchard, the West J head coach.
Yeah, that's great. If I would say some of the most fun games I've been to are volleyball games where the football teams of both of the girls teams have come out, and there'll be like 30, 40 guys, and they have, pretty much no idea what's going on, but they're just cheering for their teams, and it's hilarious. And it gets the girls pumped up, and because all those girls go and watch the football game, so that cross support is just key to your community and building all that greatness.
Definitely. So yeah, that volleyball match was the Thursday night before the football game. They played North Fremont and lost 3-2, but the fact that they were able to push North Fremont to the fifth set, encouraging for Coach Raquel Torgerson and West J's volleyball program. So that was pretty cool for the Panthers of West J. This week, the Panthers, we're finally getting into the part of the season where we're into conference play, and West J will travel to North Fremont on Friday night to take on the undefeated Huskies. So that'll be a good test for West J coming out of the gates here in conference play. We've got a slew of games set up for you on East Idaho game night on IdahoSports.com this weekend, Friday and Saturday. Sean, let's preview those matchups really quick. First of all, it's not technically East Idaho game night because it's in the Magic Valley, but Butte County in the 8-man ranks will be traveling to Lighthouse Christian. So Pirates fans from Arco will get to see Butte County take on Lighthouse. Butte County was off last week after their opponent bailed on them. Basically, they were supposed to play Wilder, and Wilder said, yeah, we're good. We've got a lot of injuries, and we don't want to run into that. So Butte County had a bye, and now they'll get to take on Lighthouse Christian. Have you seen their new turf at Lighthouse?
I haven't been there. I've driven by it, but it was a few years ago, so they did not have turf then.
Yeah, they've got new turf, and it's like every 10 yards is a different color. It's like a shade of gray, and then like blue, and then gray, and then blue. It looks cool. It's pretty cool, and Butte County fans will get to see it Friday night on IdahoSports.com. The other East Idaho games, we already talked about. Highland is at Meridian as well. Not technically an East Idaho game, but it involves an East Idaho school. And then East Idaho game night, we've got Bonneville at Shelley. Both of these teams are 1-3 overall. The winner of this game, I think, really solidifies, a playoff spot. We talked about how 16 teams get into the 4A postseason out of 24. So whoever wins this game, I think, is going to finish high enough in the conference to get there.
Yeah, I think so too. It'll come back. I think both these teams will look at, and they'll have to look and see who won this game. That might just be enough to get one of those last few at-large spots in the conference, and their conference being so tough. But who knows? Shelley, I thought last year was really good, and this year they kind of struggled a little bit. But that's a huge win for them over Blackfoot, which is also just a really strong team this year.
Yeah, so and for Shelley especially, already being 1-0 in conference play after beating Blackfoot, I mean, yeah, they get a win here. They can feel pretty good about their chances. The standings right now are Skyline, Idaho Falls, Shelley. They're all 1-0. Blackfoot's 1-1. Bonneville is 0-1. They just lost to Idaho Falls in their conference opener, and then Hillcrest is 0-2. And they come in two totally different directions, right? Shelley is feeling this high after knocking off Blackfoot, and Bonneville's coming in feeling like, man, we had that game against Idaho Falls and we couldn't finish it. And so, can they battle back? That's
Yeah.
going to be the big question for Bonneville. The other game we're going to have for you on Friday night is a non-conference game at the 5A level. Thunder Ridge is 2-3. They're going to take on Middleton. How about this matchup? Middleton's going to travel all the way across the state to play Thunder Ridge on Friday night, and we will have that game for you live from Thunder Stadium.
Yeah, I think that'll be a very interesting matchup. You have Middleton, who's moved up to the 5A, and that's a tough conference up there in Boise. And you have Thunder Ridge, that I feel like is a team that's definitely moving in the right direction. But yeah, it will be a really interesting game. It's a matchup you don't see usually unless it's a playoff, right? So it's kind of something a little different.
And Middleton, big offense, also a leaky defense. So this could be a high-scoring affair between these two teams. And then Saturday night on IdahoSports.com from Ravston Stadium, Saturday night, 7 o'clock, it's the Emotion Bowl. Idaho Falls and Skyline. What a fantastic game these two teams had last year, if you'll recall. It was just a wild back-and-forth battle. Idaho Falls ended up pulling it out late at the end, 38-34. And because of that, they got to paint the goalposts orange. Whichever team wins the Emotion Bowl gets to paint the goalposts their colors, and it stays that way for a whole year until the next matchup. So those bad boys are orange right now. Skyline wants to turn those back into blue.
Yeah, and I have a friend he's a Skyline alum, and he's already ordered his tickets online. So the tickets are already selling and he's like Saturday. And do you know why it's Saturday, or is that a new tradition for them? I couldn't quite remember if it was something why it was Saturday or not, but kind of a fun experience to get a Saturday game in. And Skyline's a team known to, they would definitely go play in the mini dome if they could. They like to move and shake it to different places for sure. They're known to do that to prepare themselves for some postseason runs.
Definitely. Yeah, I'm not sure why it's on Saturday night, except for, maybe, the stage is a little bigger, right? It's the only game going on. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah. Could be a referee thing as well, right?
That's true. Yeah.
A lot of games are getting moved now because there's not any officials left, because crazy parents are driving them all away. But that's another topic for another day. Scott Burton and I actually did it.
I watched that. Yeah.
Yeah. On the Magic Valley Prepcast, which is our District 4 podcast. If you want to tune into that, we talked about that. But Emotion Bowl Saturday night, IdahoSports.com. The big dog, our boss, Paul Kingsbury, is coming up to Ravston Stadium to broadcast that. A game like that, you got to go with the Chief, right?
Bring in the suits, huh?
Yeah, that's right. So yeah, that'll be a fun one on Saturday night as well. Let's wrap up with some volleyball and soccer talk real quick. Volleyball, this wasn't on our rundown, Sean, but I wanted to point it out. West Side has been pretty much the consensus number one team in the state for 2A volleyball this year in terms of the polls. Malad beat them last week, so that was a big victory for the Dragons. Did it vault them up in the coaches poll this week? No. West Side still ranked ahead of Malad, so I don't know. You tell me.
Malad's historically really good at volleyball. They've won some championships. The Dragons are always they have a very long, I'm pretty sure a long time coach there in Malad, and they've just always been really good. But yeah, volleyball is one of those weird sports. The tournaments don't count now towards that ranking, and I don't. It's sometimes hard to quantify some of those wins, because sometimes a team will go to a tournament and lose to all these teams, and then they'll go to state and win state. And I don't know what it takes to do that, but sometimes that happens. I think volleyball is, if you get hot at the right time, or your sky view or whatever, then you win.
Right. Malad has won 8 volleyball championships in school history, which is pretty darn impressive. And again, for Malad's volleyball team, I thought that was such a big win for them. Cami Tripp is the volleyball coach at Malad, and she's been there a long time, and she's one of the best. So way to go, Dragons. That was awesome. And
then the other volleyball was Bonneville wins the Bonneville Classic in Bonneville.
Yes.
And it was the 30th the 30th Bonneville Classic, so 30 years of this volleyball tournament, and they won the invite, and they took down Eagle 25-20, 25-20 in the championship match, and there was 18 teams there, and that was a big win for Bonneville. You know, we talked about some of the other teams, Thunder Ridge, Rigby, Madison, that kind of northern East Idaho area has just some lights out volleyball. There's not a bad team. The night in and night out, I don't think they're getting bad matchups, which just makes all the teams good, right? Playing good matches all the time.
Yes, Eagle is the favorite in the 5A Southern Idaho Conference, 5A District 3, that big Boise league. They are the number 1 team in the 5A coaches poll right now for volleyball. Madison is number 2. So for Bonneville to beat Eagle, the top team in 5A, I think says a lot about their program. They are something to watch for sure.
Yeah, that's definitely a big hurdle to, get over, just to get that win at your own tournament, and then to also beat a top 5A opponent. That's just going to give you the confidence to keep going. But that 4A and 5A up there, those are some tough districts, and you just have to see how it pans out and how they seed it. I think the seeding for volleyball at state is just going to play just a really important role this year.
Definitely. And, Idaho Falls has been playing really well this year in volleyball as well. And in Bonneville, they just swept. We're recording this Wednesday night, September 21st. Last night, Tuesday night, Bonneville swept Shelley 3-0. They got back into conference play. They've got a freshman, Shayla Belknap, who's just been playing lights out. 12 digs, 5 kills, and an ace last night. And then Ava Arfman had 10 kills and 2 blocks. This Bonneville team is legit and for real. And like we said, Skyview is kind of the 800-pound gorilla in 4A volleyball. But man, it's going to be fun to watch everybody try to knock Skyview off that perch for sure.
Yeah, I think you're going to have a lot of it's going to be fun. A lot of good matchups, and I mean, there's still a lot of volleyball to play. So we'll just have to see how it pans out.
Definitely. All right. And then I just wanted to kind of take a snapshot at, soccer and what's going on with the standings there. It's been a while since we've, really broken down what's going on in soccer. So for 5A, Thunder Ridge is playing phenomenally well. They're 10-0-1. They've got 1 draw on the season. That came against Hillcrest. They tied 1-1. And otherwise, they haven't been beaten once this year. They've only got 3 matches left in the regular season.
Yeah, they're super tough. I know the Century boys played Hillcrest tonight, and they tied Hillcrest tonight 2-2 on Wednesday night. And
oh wow, okay, breaking news.
and one of their players told me Hillcrest is good. He's like, Hillcrest is one of the best teams to play, and I believe Century's played Thunder Ridge too and lost 0-2. And that was at the start of the season. But yeah, and then in Idaho Falls has also got a nice boys team. I think they're ahead in the standings right now. So Hillcrest and Idaho Falls will be tough teams in the 4A rankings up there.
Yes. So in class 4A boys soccer, you've got a log jam at the top where Idaho Falls is 8-2 overall, 5-1 in the conference. Blackfoot is 5-2-1 overall, 4-1-1 in the conference. And then Hillcrest, like you talked about, 4-2-3 overall, 3-1-1 in the conference. So those are 3 teams that'll be battling for 2 bids to state. That'll be a fantastic battle to watch those 3. And then in District 5, it's really Century's district, right? They're 7-1 overall, 3-0 in the conference. Looks like they're gonna.
Yeah, and the other night they beat Pocatello 5-0, and so that was a huge win for them after just beating them 1-0. But I do have to give a shout out. One of my favorite coaches in the state is Blackfoot's soccer coach. He's also their baseball coach, Liam. He's awesome. So he's a great guy to talk to. Like English, he has got like the classic English accent for a soccer coach. And I don't know if you've ever met him, Brandon, but
no,
he's great. So I always see him, and then sometimes we're in the same hotel for when they're doing baseball and we're doing tennis, and he just asks me all kinds of questions. But just a cool guy. He's just a really kind of a unknown gem, I think, in Southeast Idaho. But he does a great job on the soccer and the baseball.
Yeah, Liam Pope is the boys soccer coach at Blackfoot, and he's a good one. Blackfoot's always right there in the mix for sure. 3A soccer, really the story is up north, Sugar Salem is the defending 3A champs, right? They're 10-1 overall, 1-0 in conference play. It's only a 4-team conference, so they'll finally start playing their conference matches. Their only loss was to Shelley. They lost 3-2. And otherwise, and then they beat Shelley in the rematch 3-1, so they atoned for that. And then Teton got to the championship last year in boys soccer, and they're off to a 6-0-1 start. So those are definitely the two teams in District 6 to keep an eye on. And in District 5, it's really American Falls again. They've kind of had a stranglehold on this district the past couple of years. They're 7-3-1 overall, 3-0 in league play.
Yeah, and what I saw there was Teton and American Falls did play, and that game was a tie, 1-1. So that's pretty telling there. And Teton, because 3A soccer has always historically been Sun Valley, right? Sun Valley kind of has wrapped it up, and then last year you had all kinds of kind of upsets in the 3A, and it was pretty exciting to watch. And the Southeast Idaho teams they're gonna be tough in that bracket.
Yes, it's going to be fascinating to watch the postseason soccer tournaments because there were so many wild upsets last year. First time they had used the Max Preps rankings, and we had a couple 8s beat 1 seeds. We had an 8 seed.
Chalice?
Well, so the funny thing is Sun Valley Community School, their boys soccer team was the 3 seed, and they lost to Kimberly, the 6 seed, right away. And then on the girls' side, it was flipped, where Sun Valley girls were the 8 seed and Kimberly was the 1 seed, and Sun Valley knocked off Kimberly. Sun Valley, as the 8 seed last year, got all the way to the championship in girls soccer, which was just wild.
Yeah, that very rarely happens, I think. So, I mean, we haven't had the rankings for a lot of time, but you kind of have an idea of where teams stand going into it anyways, and it's very rarely that happens.
I really think it comes down to those penalty kicks where, the penalty kicks, you can basically throw it out the window. You could have a 10-0 team versus an 0-10 team. And if it goes to penalty kicks, it really could go either way. And so I think that's the big difference when you get into the postseason. They don't obviously do that in the regular season, but the penalty kicks, man, it makes things wild and unpredictable for sure. So let's look at girls soccer quickly. 5A standings. Highland continuing to roll. They're 8-2 overall, 3-0 in the conference. Madison is lurking, 6-3 overall, 2-1 in conference play. When they met in early September, Highland won 8-0. The rematch comes this Saturday. With the win, Highland can pretty much wrap up the regular season title.
Yeah, that's again another tough conference, but Highland had a great year last year and kind of continuing to roll that this year.
And Thunder Ridge is saying, we're there, we're close. Thunder Ridge, you look at their overall record and they're 7-2-3, but their league record is 0-2-1. They just haven't been able to close it out. They've got all these great non-conference wins over Hillcrest and Preston and Pocatello, but they tied Idaho Falls 3-3 early on in the season, and then when they got into conference play, they've tied Rigby 2-2. And then they've lost a pair of 1-goal matches to Highland 2-1 and Madison 3-2. So I still think Highland and Thunder Ridge are the two best teams. And Madison maybe at 2.5, but for Thunder Ridge, they have to figure out a way to win these tight games. And they just haven't been able to do that in conference play yet.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Let's take a look at the 4A soccer landscape for girls soccer. Up north or up north in District 6,
the High County Conference.
Yeah, the High Country Conference. Bonneville 5-1-2 overall, 4-0-1 in league play. Idaho Falls 5-2-3 overall, 4-0-2 in conference play. And those are kind of the two teams, right? Bonneville, Idaho Falls. Skyline is lurking. I mean, they're 2-6-2 overall, but in league play, which is what's most important, they're 2-1-2. So Skyline is kind of hanging around. They've had they had a 0-0 tie with Idaho Falls, which was huge for them at Ravston Stadium. We'll find out because we get into the second half of conference play really starting this week. So we'll see what kind of separation everybody can find there.
Yep.
But Bonneville,
it's really close. Bonneville, and I think it'll be a tournament where you just, like you said, sometimes the best teams don't win in soccer. It just kind of comes down to those endings. So that that conference, you could see a lot of that maybe happening.
Definitely. Pocatello in District 5, the Thunder look really good. 8-2-1 overall, 3-0 in conference play. They've pretty much got District 5 on lockdown there, the Lady Thunder, as they have been playing really well this year. Into the 3A ranks, where it's a lot of the usual suspects. It's American Falls, it's Sugar Salem, and it's Teton. The Diggers are 11-0. They are undefeated still at this point of the season, 1-0 in conference play. Teton is also 1-0 in District 6. They're 4-1-2 overall. And then American Falls, 8-3 overall, 4-0 in the district. Just like on the boys' side.
Yep.
Sugar, it's Teton, it's American Falls.
Yeah, and it's not a lot of turn. They turn around there, but all the schools basically the same. And Teton and Sugar Salem, that should be a good game, and that's coming up pretty soon here on the 27th. So be pretty interesting to see that, because Sugar Salem is beating teams by a large amount, like 15-0, 12-0, 10-1. So it doesn't look like they've been tested really too much at all. So that game against Teton maybe will be their test.
Yeah, that's going to be, and they play Teton twice still, on the 27th in Driggs, and then the regular season finale, October 6th at Sugar. So, yes, we will see. Right now, 3A soccer has 3 teams statewide that are still undefeated, and they're all from 3 different areas, which means you could have 3 teams at state possibly that are all undefeated. That would be really intriguing. Coeur d'Alene Charter from the north, Sun Valley Community School in the Magic Valley, and then Sugar Salem over in the east. And of course, we know Coeur d'Alene Charter has been a really good program throughout the years as well. So I don't know, that 3A girls soccer tournament might be the most intriguing.
Yeah, it'll have to see where everyone kind of pans out with the rankings and kind of look at those matchups, because it might appear on paper to not be a good matchup, but it might be. There might be, you might have to do some Baney bracketology there.
Yes. And as we turn the calendar and go to October, we'll start talking more about Max Prep's rankings and figuring out where teams might end up on the bracket and that kind of stuff. But, I don't want to bust out the calculator until September's over.
We got to get through those conference games. You got to get through those conference games. That's
right. The picture's got to become a little more clear. So, all right. Hey, that was pretty good. We ran through a lot. We touched on a lot of different schools. And again, if there's a team or a player or a coach you want us to talk about, I got an email from somebody asking how come we don't talk about Thunder Ridge boys soccer ever. And I was like, that she's right. Let's focus on boys soccer this week and kind of look at the standings and break down, who's been looking good. And so, yes, keep sending those. Brandon at IdahoSports.com if there's a team or an athlete or a story you want us to talk about, because we need your help, right? We're only 2 guys. We can't hit it all.
Yeah, I had one more thing that I got in late. I always have one little snippet. I'm the expert. Highlands girls swim team won the Rupert Invite this past week with 13 schools. So we haven't talked about any swimming. So congrats to the Highlands swim team for taking the Rupert Invite.
That's awesome.
Another sport that we try to get to, but there's so many in the fall. But congratulations to the Highland girls swim team.
Yes, and swimming they're one of the first to hit the postseason. So we'll definitely be talking swimming as we ramp up for that. Is it still one coach for all 3 schools, Century, Highland, and Pocatello?
I don't even know where they swim. Right, there's no water at Reed Gym. I think they're back at the community. They were practicing at Ross Park, but all the high schools were earlier in the season. I do know that. I think they might have separate coaches, because I believe Karen is the coach at Century and at Homestead, and I don't know if she's the coach for Highland. They might have it separated now, but they were practicing outside, which is great for the tan. But I'm guessing they've had to move inside to the rec center. But yeah, there's not a lot of pools in the Gate City. We need Gate City pool improvement.
Yes. During the pandemic, I know that was a problem as well. ISU completely shut down everything. And so, yeah, you're right. It looks like there's different coaches. Peggy Kaiser is the swimming coach at Century.
Oh, yeah.
For Highland, it's Macy Jordan. And at Pocatello, it is Karen Homestead. So
Homestead. Yeah, I mixed them up. Sorry.
Yeah, no, you're fine.
They all do like club swimming too. And my daughter used to do it. So
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Right on. So yes, thank you, Sean, for bringing the swimming to the podcast as well, because they don't always get the attention they deserve either. So I'm glad that we're back to having stayed in one location. Remember during the pandemic where everybody just
videoed they did the video one too, where they sent in a video of them swimming.
Yeah, they did their own self-recorded times, and it was such crap. East Idaho got screwed on that big time because it's tougher to swim, here as opposed to the Treasure Valley because of elevation and that kind of stuff. So I'm
sure the quality of the pool makes your equipment, your facilities make a huge difference. So, and obviously they're in Treasure Valley, or not Treasure Valley, but Magic Valley or wherever, a little better pools.
Yeah, right, for sure. So, all right, well, that'll do it. We'll swim off into the sunset, I guess. Here, I have no idea.
We'll be going somewhere else this weekend. So,
yeah, we're gonna be broadcasting in the Magic Valley for Minico against Burley. That'll be a fun game as well, though. But really, no games in Pocatello this week. Everybody's on the road, and a lot of good games up in District 6, though, including that Emotion Bowl on Saturday. Don't forget to tune in at 7 o'clock Saturday night. All right. Thanks for tuning into the East Idaho Prepcast, everybody. Enjoy the competition this weekend. For Sean Kane, I'm Brandon Baney, and we'll see you next time on IdahoSports.com.